course. So, all right. Hey, how you doing? All right. I am Guatemalan by birth, and for those of you who know Guatemalans, no? Okay. It's a mostly Spanish and Catholic country, so Christmas and Easter are the two hugest holidays. And while a Christmas tree is integral to the Christmas celebration, the big thing is the Nacimento. The Nacimento for you gringos means nativity scene, and they're not like regular nativity scenes like you guys have, like just Joseph, Mary, a couple of sheep. They go all out, and when I talk about all out, they have like a cafeteria table full of things. And usually, and if you go to almost any Guatemalan house, there's like it's covered in a white cloth to signify snow. Someone in the back knows what I'm talking about. And then there are houses. A little town is built. A train is built, and then of course the baby Jesus, because that's timely. In our house, my dad though was crazy about this. This was his like thing to go to, and all year round it was a preparation for the Nacimiento. You know, we would go into practically any store, and he'd be like, "Oh, mijo, these would be good for the Nacimiento." My favorite time though was when we were in the hospital. My grandfather was very sick, and everyone was really somber. And we were in the gift shop, and my dad was just like, he's having a really hard time. And all of a sudden he looks down and he goes, "Oh!" And I'm like, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" He's like, "I found this fire truck for the Nacimiento, mijo. Isn't it wonderful? It will look really good." And I'm like, "Yeah, it'll look really good next to the McDonald's that you have up there." It was big in Jerusalem back in No, I love them. It's a great tradition to have, you know. But the thing about it is that my dad would spend weeks getting it together. Like literally, he would draw, and he'd come home from work and be like in October, he'd start drawing. Like, "Mijo, what do you think about this layout this year? Do you think this works?" Like, luckily he never learned CAD, so I escaped that whole computer-generated graphics. But he also, like, the other thing too was that he was really big on trying to include us. You know, like he would buy stuff all year, but he would want to, like when I was little, he would take my toys and try to include them in the Nacimiento. And he picked up my He-Man one year and said, "You know, mijo, He-Man, he would be a good shepherd. He's got muscles, he protect the sheep." I'm like, "Dad, he's not really dressed as a shepherd." He's like, "I'd put a hat on him." And that was his thing. He'd pick up Lionel, and he goes, "Lionel, he'd be a good saint, you know?" And like, "With a hat, we put a hat, he'd look like a saint." I'm like, no. And don't even pick up Optimus Prime, not kosher. The other thing too was that, the other thing about the tradition of filling up, it's not just about having a party, but what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to pray for 2 weeks after Christmas. You pray for 2 weeks, and every night you do like a half hour for like it's a rosary. I don't remember, it's been too long. But my parents would hold off doing it, so like every year, like they'd pray on Christmas, wait 2 or 3 days, and pray like for 4 hours, and wait another 2 or 3 days. And so the Nacimiento would stay up. And there was actually a rule, and I'm going to tell you about the time that the rule got instituted, that we were supposed to take down the Nacimiento before Easter. Because according to my mother, you can't celebrate the death of Jesus if you still have the birth of Jesus going on in the background. So this year, my mom and dad, and they never fought, by the way. 40 years of marriage, I never saw them fight once, except about taking down the Nacimiento. And so this one year, we actually bought a house, and my dad had overtaken the den. At first, it was like half of the room. Pretty soon, he actually got a storage unit for the Nacimiento time to take his office supplies out. So the entire room would be like, you'd have a little path that you cut through to get to the tree. And we had one tree in there and another tree in the living room for the presents, because you couldn't put presents underneath the Nacimiento. I told you, it's crazy about this. And so my dad, it was right around Semana Santa, which is Holy Week, which is right before Easter. My mom and dad just got a huge argument about getting the tree down, because my mom had found little mice droppings, because it was just like in this room, and it was like causing filth, and so of course I was delegated to removing the tree. But my dad said, "Whatever you do, mijo, don't mess up the Nacimiento. You know, we're not done praying yet." Like, it's been 4 months. Is it 2 weeks? So I take the tree down, and I come back in the room, and my dad is angry. You know, he's like, "Mijo, the Nacimento's a mess. What did you do?" And he's like picking up stuff. And I'm like, "I didn't touch it. I was really careful, because I know it's the one thing you care about more than me. I'm not going to touch the Nacimiento." He's like, the train set's all screwed. And all of a sudden, my mom screams. And me and my dad look down, and we see 2 dead mice in the middle of the Nacimento. And my dad's like freaking out, like, because he doesn't want them touching anything. And I look over at my mom and dad, and I go, well, maybe if we put a hat on the mice. Thank you.